AskReddit by mqualth13. What is a green flag you've experienced on a first date that made you want to have a second date? We had been dating about 6 months and she showed up at my apartment with a homemade cake on my birthday. It might sound like no big deal to some people, but I had never dated a girl who cared about my birthday. I almost dropped to my knees and cried when I opened the door. That's super wholesome, man. Mad respect. We talked about everything and the conversation never dulled. Everyone at the party left and we were the only two people there and didn't realize it for a while 25 years later and were still running our mouths. Legend has it that they're still at that party, 25 years later. When my girlfriend and I had our first date, our mom sent her with $50, just in case I made her pay, I guess, and since I paid, she made the waiter cry by tipping him the whole $50. Apparently he was having a bad day. That's so sweet. She was an hour late. However, the entire time, she was texting me updates and telling me what she was doing to get there. We are going to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary on 1/1. This is awesome because so many dates could have bailed if they were late. The fact she was communicating was a big green flag for relationship potential. Happy early anniversary. On our third date we watched a movie at his place. He remembered that on our first date I ordered a Dr. Pepper with my meal and a chocolate chip cookie for dessert. He had Dr. Peppers for me in the fridge and made me homemade chocolate chip cookies. He burned them, but I married him 2 years later anyways. Would you have married him sooner if he hadn't burned the cookies? She came to my door and my puppy got excited. Without skipping a beat, she scooped up the dog and asked where the three of us were going. That was 19 years ago. Puppy is gone, but we've stuck together through hell and back. So where did the three of y'all go? She appreciates all the small things. Biggest green flag. It's a good song. I realized I spend most of the dates talking about myself, hear me out, and I've never once had that happen. I'm a very reserved and private person when I first meet someone, which has honestly made dating difficult for years, but he had such a way of asking questions and keeping the conversation going and encouraging me sharing my thoughts, opinions, and he also shared his to everything I said. That when our date was done, I realized I spent almost the entire date talking, which is so unlike me for first dates. I wasn't afraid of him judging me or not liking my response to something. All of his questions were sincere and he seemed to genuinely care about whatever the hell was about to come out of my mouth. I didn't have to think about what to say. It just came out of me and he met me wherever I was at. Maybe it sounds silly, but it was pretty magical. We still see each other. No, that's really sweet. It's great to be with someone who listens and brings you out of your shell. First date. She was driving us to a spot to go hiking, about an hour's drive. We're talking and talking, but every once in a while we wouldn't be talking, and it just felt so comfortable and not awkward being silent together. Oh man, comfy silence is so underrated. We met up for park beers on our first date. From the get-go, things just felt natural. The conversation flowed, we laughed, and it felt more like meeting with an old friend than a first date. When it got dark, she brought me back to hers to meet her cat. No innuendo. We waited a few dates to bang, and I just really love cats. We didn't plan to, but we met up the next day. And the next. Took her to family BBQ 2 weeks in, and they loved her. That easy, natural feeling never left. And right now our cat, is screaming at me for dinner. That is precious. He took me out for coffee in a place that he made me choose. When I got there, he was already waiting and the way his eyes shined when he saw me was really adorable. We ordered and played chess. His hand was shaking. It's been a year and counting. That's a long game of chess. We stayed at the wine bar much longer than planned, and we were trying to race to a restaurant for food before places closed. So, I offered her a piggyback ride to run it, due to her wearing heels. She jumped on, threw her arm forward and yelled onward. We didn't make it to the restaurant in time, but did end up at the nearby diner for a few more hours. Been married just past 3 years now, and leaving for our honeymoon. Finally, thanks COVID, in 10 hours. Edit. Well, this blew up. Thanks all for the awards. Congratulations. That sounds like so much fun for a date. We met in a nightclub. I took him home for some fun and games. When we woke up and had breakfast, he said, "What would you like to do today?" instead of just leaving his number and doing the dash. We've been together for 27 years and married for 15 of them, and we've almost never spent a night apart. Never feed a stray. We never leave. Deleted. That's so lovely. Vibing with someone like that is an amazing feeling. He made it clear it was a date and that he was interested without it ever feeling creepy or like he was pressuring me for anything. We talked for hours, went from restaurant to walking up and down the river to my place for a beer. Then I offered for him to stay over, but on a mattress on the floor. I was in a studio with no couch, not in my bed, and he wasn't pushy about anything more happening. The first few weeks he was always sweet and respectful, but made it so clear that he was interested in a relationship. No back and forth or second guessing. And now we're married. Edit. I showed him this thread and now he's super smiley. It's very cute. Congrats. It's fantastic when you can find a good balance between clearly being interested and not being pushy. A 2-hour date that felt like 5 minutes. At the end of it she made some silly bet with me that she said if she lost, she'd go out with me again. And of course she lost. It was about 8 green flags. She bet on the Jets, didn't she? Our first real date was someone else's wedding. We got tired of the reception and walked onto the pier to look at the stars. Now we're married ourselves. I hope you had a boring reception and gave another couple a chance. I asked if she wanted to go to McDonald's and split some fries because that's all I could afford at the time. She said sure. We talked a long time and split a large fries and she was so chill about it. She wanted to be with me. Anywhere would have been okay. I knew if she was willing to go out with a broken, struggling me, she would also be willing to build a life with me from the ground up. We have been married 35 years, through ups and downs, kids, sickness, wealth and poverty. Amazing story. People who see through all your circumstances to look at the real you are truly special. He took me to an amateur stand-up comedy night. He was heartily laughing at all the jokes. They were so bad. So not funny at all. I was planning to not go on another date with him because he obviously has a bad sense of humor. As we were walking to the car he commented how bad everyone was, but he wanted to encourage them so he laughed at everyone's jokes. We've been married for 12 years now. I've only done one stand-up set and it didn't go well. But there was one girl in the audience that seemed like she was genuinely laughing at every bit. It gave me the confidence to keep going instead of just bailing in my set. It was an awful night, but I'm thankful to her for probably faking it. Sense of humor and feeling safe. I was living in Reno, Nevada at the time, and this is my current relationship. Our first date we went to downtown Reno to hot August nights. We walked through the event, viewing all the hot rod cars, and for dinner we went to Subway. He is easy to talk to, and very funny. We took the bus from downtown to Midtown viewing all the hot rods. Walked from Midtown to my apartment in South Reno. Was the best night of my life so far. I love him so much. I was new to the area. We met at a restaurant in a town I wasn't familiar with. Had a great date, but when I went to go home in my car, he noticed I accidentally turned on the service road instead of the highway. He followed me and flagged me down to let me know I'd gone the wrong way. This was long before cell phones and GPS, and I didn't have a map of the area. I would have been super lost in the middle of the night. I was like, wow, this is a super nice guy. That was 22 years ago and we're still together. This was almost a red flag till it was a green one. Random dance at a club. She held my hand after it ended. We were married 24 years before she passed due to cancer. I'm sorry, man. I sympathize with you. I also lost my wife. Among other things, we talked about books, and at some point I asked for some recommendations. He said he had to think about it, but I didn't expect him to actually do. The next day he texted me a list of his favorite books, showing that he had been really thinking about me and that he didn't care about those weird texting rules, that you shouldn't text the day after a date so you won't seem too eager. Also, just the fact that he wanted to talk about books. I was asked for an audiobook recommendation by the guy I was dating. About 2 weeks later I get an email with the subject line book report. He wrote a 5-paragraph essay about this book and emailed it to me. He said, I wanted you to know I took your recommendation seriously. This is my favorite AskReddit thread ever. I'm enjoying it, hoping I'll have my own story one of these days. For now I'll have to go with the first time I walked into a room full of dogs up for adoption. My buddy was in the first crate, spluted out chewing on a toy, not giving a fuck. Every other dog was barking their heads off, going crazy. Knew the second I saw him. No slight to the other dogs, stressful situation. 4 years later he still sleeps with me in my bed. The date was supposed to just be getting a drink or two. We stayed until the place was closing down, and even then the date wasn't over. We watched Donnie Darko and he made us cookies. We've been together for almost 10 years and married for 5. Everyone should have someone they're unwilling to say goodbye to. Love the last line. When we sat down, he told me that he would pay and not to worry, since he asked me out. When we left the cafe and he asked me for a walk and we went for one, he listened closely to me because at the end, he asked me if I would be comfortable if he brought me home, since I mentioned being followed and catcalled by guys. And he waited for me to reach out for a hug in the end, and even better was the way he asked for a kiss. We hugged and he was like, always that uncertainty about a kiss on the first date. That was the moment I knew he would not mind if I said no. But I said yes. Yeah, was a gorgeous first date. Glad to have had that experience at least once so far. That's lovely. It's honestly really attractive when people are so thoughtful about asking for consent. She stopped at GameStop on the way over to grab another Wii controller so that my roommate could play Super Mario 3D World with us on the Wii she was bringing with her. That was almost 8 years ago. Have you seen her since? Walking her home, she accidentally stepped on a snail. She felt really bad about it. Almost married her right there. I commented this already but thought you'd appreciate it. Just a few weeks ago my husband, married 5 years, together 14 in March, and I were on a walk shortly after it had rained a bunch. I bent down to move a snail off the path so it wouldn't get crushed, and for the rest of the walk he would point one out if I missed it. He lets me be me. Hey OP, thanks for creating this post. All the comments, and your thoughtful replies to the comments, are making me feel great and hopeful about the world. Was just laid off the week before our second date, called her to cancel. I was down and unsure about my next move. She asked me what kind of pizza I fancy. 1 hour later she's at my doorstep with pizzas and beer to cheer me up. Married 12 years. Love you, my badass plumber. If she was your plumber before you got together, you could rest easy knowing she already knew how to deal with your shit.